Try. Hi. Hi. Hi, welcome everyone. So, yes, welcome everyone. And if you're in the back, if I can ask you to come forward a little bit. Um, but my name is Ama Boachidankwa. I am the Associate Director for Imperial Global Ghana. Very excited to have you all here today. Um, just by way of background, Imperial Global Ghana is one of 4 of the hubs with Imperial College in London. And it's part of the overall strategy that the university has to build research and innovation relationships around the world. And one of the many different types of programming that we have include a fellowship for journalists where we talk about science storytelling and promote science storytelling and really support the ecosystem as it relates to science storytelling. And it is in this vein, through this program, that this program kind of came to be. And, you know, I was sitting with myself as the journalists came back, and I was like, I wonder if this is the kind of program that content creators should also participate in. Looking at the ways in which journalism is evolving and the way that we tell stories is also evolving. And just as I was having this sort of thought, I happened upon Gifty Bingley's now infamous Facebook or LinkedIn post, where she also was talking about the evolving role of journalism and how journalism itself is asking journalists to become content creators, to draw closer to the audiences, to be faster in what they produce. But the question really is, what are we giving up in that process? And what really is the value of institutional or traditional media versus the value of content creation? And that's kind of what brought us into this moment. So I'm grateful that you're all here. I'm excited about the conversation. I trust that it'll challenge us in many different ways. But before we get started, a lot of people were like, what is the debate house? Is it a real thing? You know, what is this? And I thought it appropriate to invite Frances to talk a little bit about it, just so you all have some background and know, yes, it's a real place here in Ghana, a serious place. And so, Frances, here, take a minute to just tell people about the debate house.
All right, thank you, Oma. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Benedicta Frances, and I am the Executive Director for the Debate House. So it is a space where we encourage bold conversations, intelligent conversations. We invite you here to come and just talk about all the various topics that we have. And then if we have to disagree, we do it respectfully. We just want to have a space where people come and leave heard. So we have different themes that we run with. We've got cultural themes, faith themes, that is religious topics. We've got social themes as well. We've got AI and generational themes. We've got a lot of topics. And for in the past, we've done topics on wills and responsibilities. You know, we have people who don't know at what point in their lives to make a will. We talked about that. We've also talked about cervical cancer and breast cancer. We've also recently done mental health discussion, which was very, very amazing. It was an eye-opener, and a lot of people left learning things. And we are still rolling that conversation on our social medias. So you can, if you want more information, our website is thedebatehouse.club. You find it on Google, and our social medias is also The Debate House. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. YouTube is mainly where we have our live streaming. So all of our past sessions, you would find it on our YouTube page. And yeah, this is The Debate House. Anytime you want to learn more about it, you can just find us on social media, and you can also reach us out. Our numbers are on our social media, and we are willing to help you. Any events that you want to do, we also host that as well. We've got 3 rooms up there, that's meeting rooms. So if you want a very small casual lunch or anything that you're doing, we are able to do that as well. So you're welcome again, and I hope you enjoy this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances. All right, so without further ado, I will invite the one and only Madame Gifty Bingley to come up. She is our moderator for the evening. Yes, give it up for her. So I will let her introduce herself and carry us through the night.
Thank you so much, Emma. This started really like a a conversation between me and a former colleague on where we think journalism is going. And I sort of posted it on LinkedIn, and Amma came in. So my name is Gifty Bingley. I used to be a journalist. I did journalism for 12 years. I did radio, I did TV, and then I left and sort of went on the other side. So the other side is your typical comms people who engage journalists. So even though I've left journalism, I've still engaged journalists and used them to tell different stories. So I've worked in corporate, I've worked in diplomatic, I've worked in multilateral, sort of been around for quite a while. So this particular topic is interesting for all the right reasons. If you're doing science communication, for instance, where do you go? Do you go to the content creators, or do you go to the traditional media house? They each have their advantage and disadvantage, at least from my experience of having used them in the last 16 years, because I've been out of journalism for 16 years now. In the last 16 years, I've seen it evolve, right? Right from 2008, where tabloids and bloggers became a conversation, till now, where we've had TikTok and all those others come in. So I've seen your typical traditional media, which is very institutional, backed by editors, sub-editors, reporters, through to even your, what would we call them, production assistant, right? All of them are supposed to have different levels of qualification and competence and different things. So for instance, a reporter would write a story, it goes to a sub-editor who goes through, does a lot of editing, gatekeeping. It goes to an editor who does a lot of editing, gatekeeping. But beyond all these as well, they've even got lawyers on standby as well. So a story is debated and goes through different channels before it goes out. We've had those. And then we've had the mid-range. So the mid-range, I mean, I was just talking to Amaya about, in my perspective, the mid-range is not your one-person content creator, but also not your typical institutional, traditional media house. So your mid-range will be some level of journalism training, some level of professionalism, well-established, understands the ethics of the profession, adheres to it, but then the level of gatekeeping and filtering doesn't go as deeply as your typical traditional media would go. And then, of course, you have your other one, which is just me with a microphone in my room. You've come to me to come and say that you did this research, this is what you found, this particular drug or herb can cure this. And therefore, I go and I start talking about it. And I may have probably about 50,000 followers as opposed to the traditional media. So even in terms of that, where do you put your money? Where do you put your resources? Which one is more interesting to you? Is it about reach? Is it about audience? Is it about ethics? The lines are not so clear because sometimes you have to navigate all these things through all these different things. And especially if you've got funders who are expecting to see some content done, some content published. Sometimes you end up sacrificing some of these ethics. Because it doesn't get you that. And then if you've got others on the other hand who are so focused on the ethics, they do the comms, but no one hears the story and no one knows it. So it's a brilliant story, it's a brilliant piece, but it's still a well-kept secret. So I'm hoping that today, with all our panels, we can have an honest conversation and see, where do we go? Do we go the traditional way? Or do we go the content creation way? Or is there a hybrid? Or some sort of evolution needs to happen so that we can be more targeted? Even with the content creators, where do we bring them in? Are there opportunities to train? All those are interesting conversations. So we're quite looking forward to that. But before I call the panel to come and sit down, Amma and I had agreed that we were going to do a poll where at the moment I've sort of given you a summary of some of the good and some of the not so good. So based on that, what do you yourself think? So we're going to project what our provocation is. So do you agree or disagree with the following motion? Journalism has failed African science, and researchers let it happen. Creators might be our last hope. So scan the QR code and then vote. And then after we've debated, we'll come back to this and see if the panel was able to convince you to change your mind that maybe creators are our only hope, or maybe they are not, or maybe journalism is still our hope because of all the fantastic things related. So the ethics, the professionalism, the institutional support, the gatekeeping, the levels of filter, or is about getting the message out there, and therefore maybe content creators will give you the reach, and probably also a lot more cheaper because you're not dealing with an institution. So please vote. Okay. We need more votes to come in. It's okay if you don't see what most people are selecting. That's the whole point, because we don't want to influence the room. So we don't want everybody choosing that. So, yeah. Okay, 1, that's interesting. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Somebody else has to vote because we can't have a tie. Somebody else needs to vote. Okay, 6, 5. Has everybody voted? You voted? Thank you. You voted as well? Oh, okay. 6, 6, no. We need to break the tie. We can't go 6, 6. We can't go 6, 6. Somebody else has to vote. Okay, 7. Brilliant. Okay. 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 So the pink is agree and the green is disagree. So indeed, what we're saying is that what? Journalism has failed African science and researchers let it happen. So we agree that content creators might be the last hope. Is that what we're saying? Well, that's what the poll is saying. 8 of us believe that content creators are our last hope. So the motion now is for content creators. Yeah. The motion now is for content creators. So 8. Then get online and vote, because for now, we're saying that content creators are our last hope and that journalism has failed African science. Okay, still 1, but still agree. Okay. The pink is agree, and the green is disagree. Yeah. No, but you see it on your... We prefer that because we don't want to influence you. That's because if we had showed it, it would have swayed the room and influenced the room. But at least on your phone, it's just you and your phone and you deciding. And yeah, well, you didn't vote. Okay. So so the motion now is that content creators are our last hope. Okay. We can't have a tie. No. No. Okay. We'll come back to this and vote again when we finish, and we'll see if it's still a tie. If the panelists are able to convince you that that's not the way to go. Okay, so I'll call the first panel member, the neuroscientist at the University of Ghana, co-founder for GH Scientific, Ghana's leading science communication, over a decade building GH Scientific. So, Dr. Thomas Tego, please take your seat. Okay. So our next one is an independent reporter, TV3, writes about e-waste and air quality in Agbogbloshie, reporting on IGG adjacent territory. Christian Yale? On his way. Oh, so he's not here yet. Okay, all right. And then our very own from the Ghana News Agency writes about sickle cell disease and innovation in care. She works for the Ghana News Agency. Those that don't know, Ghana News Agency is Ghana's newswire. They date back as far as I can think of. In 1998, when I was in radio, they were our only source of stories. So you'd have to go sit by we used to have a box in that. I don't think that box exists because I think they've transitioned into computers now. And you'd pull we used to have what we call computer sheets. And you'd pull the whole computer sheet with it. So let's welcome Linda Na Dede Aite. She is for traditional media. And then, of course, one of the people that I really admire and have seen him transition and transform and make a lot of changes. I typically don't, every time I've had to put him in a bracket, I don't call him traditional media. And I also don't call him content creator because I think somehow he's in the bridge. He doesn't sensationalize and he doesn't look for clickbaits. But at the same time, he's got a business that depends on, that others need to survive. So he's got to find a midway in between. And I've known him from we worked together 2011. I was at the British High Commission then, yeah. So I've known him that long. Please welcome Amiel, Deborah. He is for the motion of content creators. So we're waiting for Christian to come. Okay. All right. So we will move on and hopefully wait for him. So as part of this debate as well, myself and Amma agreed on 3 provocations. Essentially, 3 main areas where we think that each of the panel members can give us their perspective. And then you will be able to judge accurately and fairly if we're going the right way. So the first provocation is about audience and attention. These days, really, it is about attention. In the early days, it was also about attention because radio stations will sell you their slot based on how high the traffic is. You will find the same slot in a morning show. You'll find that one station, you're paying, say, 15K. The same slot in another radio station, you're paying maybe about 2,000K, because one attracts premium audience within a certain belt, appeals to a certain niche, and therefore that value is there. So for our provocations here, we're looking at the audience and the attention as well. And we're saying that a content creator has 50,000 followers, reaches more people with policy ideas than any newspaper would. There are newspapers that produce under 50,000. And yet a content creator can give you as much as 100,000 and can put the information in a succinct way that it's easily relatable, it's easy to understand, it's easy to get it. So between these two, really, if we say that the content creator is not a threat, but rather the attention economy is what demands it to be. Our question is, why are we still treating it like a threat in a world that is embracing audience engagement? You follow people because they have a lot of followers. You listen to people because they are influencers. Ameya Deborah has a far reach than XYZ WV radio. And therefore, I found on Ameya Deborah and therefore it's credible, right? Or even if it's not credible, I heard that one, the other one I didn't hear, because the whole point about the attention reaches is able to get to you very easily without you necessarily going to look for it. And that's the world we're getting to now because of our mobile phones. It's about accessibility. You will go browse on Facebook or Instagram, not necessarily looking for a particular piece of information, but you will come across it. And it's useful for you. And the only reason why you came across it is because even the algorithm itself pushes people with more reach than people who don't have reach. So really, why are we all not embracing content creators? I will start first with Linda. For the traditional media sense, what does this mean?
It means that journalism has evolved over the years, but content creation is actually not the way to go, because science communication for me is about context, clarity, and understanding, not content and following. Yeah.
But then we're saying that context and understanding without the audience. Are you not worried?
We've always have the audience, but yeah, we've always have the audience. I mean, we would still have content creators have the following, but when it comes to understanding serious issues like breaking stories, investigative stories, and all that, we still have journalism being at the forefront.
Doc.
Okay, sorry. Right, I was listening cutely. I would say if we were to speak in line with sort of like to head to the question you asked, starting from the motion we began with, I would say that yes, in my opinion, the journalists and the researchers, whether the journalists have failed and the researchers allowed them, or the journalists and the researchers have both failed, then yes, I would agree to that. And this is coming from me, who is a researcher and has had the opportunity to join some science journalism trainings and deliver such sessions. I'll say yes, we have failed in that regard, and for the simple reason that we don't like the status quo. At least I don't like the status quo, and the individuals that are currently responsible for the status quo are myself holistically, my people, and then the journalists that we've been working with in the past. So, per simple reductionist approach, it means we are left with the other players that haven't had a good chance to play in the game yet, to see if that can make a difference in that regard. Yeah.
And these other players you're talking about are the content creators.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
don't want to call them out.
Oh no, because people's definition of content creators, changes, and in this way, the scientist in me, I have to be very careful, because then the first question we then ask is, who is a content creator? Let's define that first before we proceed. And wanting to avoid that, I'm just going to say the players on the field currently, if we want to communicate science, are the researchers and the journalists. Their outcomes so far, altogether, not really impressed with it. So then they must be to blame. So who can we bring onto the playing field? Yeah, it's where I stand.
Okay, Amiel. Yeah.
Any specific question for me?
No.
Well,
The same one.
The same one. So I'm thinking perhaps the threat that people see comes in terms of how people do the content creation, where it's perhaps based more on opinion than fact and what has been researched. But we can still have content creation bring in the context that is right. And I think that people who are doing that, often at times we always look at the content creator on that sort of spectrum where they're not doing the right thing, and we use that to generalize. But I think there are people who can serve that purpose, and we shouldn't throw all of them away with the water.
That takes us into the second part of the conversation, which was about credibility, right? Because the whole point of news generation as well is also credibility. The person who's communicating it, are they getting the message right? Does the person understand the context? Do they bring all that into play? So I will move to you. Christian, between content creators and journalism, in terms of credibility, where do you stand? I know that you are traditional media,
Yes.
and journalism, so you're all for it. But also just asking, my point is just being open-minded and being
Yeah.
honest here.
Yeah.
In terms of credibility, where do you find it?
Yeah, I'll go for journalism simply because when you look at, and I think there is an underlying problem, that when you get into the Ghanaian space, for instance, most people go to the journalism school, they do general study, they learn something general to practice journalism. Now, in order to be able to communicate science effectively, some would even say that you need a specialist knowledge to be able to go about it. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with a friend who has not practiced journalism before, and she tells me that when I get money and I buy a good phone, I'll start content creation. Then you have a problem. You don't have the likes of the Améyal Debres, you don't have the likes of the 1957s. Even for them, you'd realize that what we have found over the years, over the period, has been that most of our journalism and content creation focus around politics, economy, entertainment, sports, business, even business. Luckily these days you have people who have economics and finance background who divert into journalism, and they're able to effectively articulate and work along those lines. But what happens to science? Is it that you develop interest, and then after developing the interest, you begin to read around the subject areas, and then you're able to report it? So when you ask me about credibility, at least for the journalist, the story would go through layers before it gets published. Whether you're publishing it on TV or on radio, or an online portal, it to go through some layers. These days, I have had instances that I share even captions with people to use for social media, and they put it into ChatGPT, and before you realize, if you're not lucky, ChatGPT would use an old name for an official who is not the same person as the past person. So there are those complexities, but you are a bit assured that at least with journalism, with a journalist, there are some layers of proofreading and all of that before the final work gets out there. But I know that these days there are more content creators, so to speak, who are even doing better, okay? And they peruse the content, they take their time. The only problem, again, is about the speed. Who gets it out there early enough? And that is where you have the issues springing up, especially on the content creation side.
Doc, do you agree on the credibility side?
No.
He talks about an interesting point with the layers, and so my first question to you would be, do you agree on the credibility side? My second one will be, as he said, where are the scientist journalists? Is it that after doing the sciences and spending all that money in medical school and the rest, you don't find it lucrative enough to move into those areas?
Well, okay, it's not that you don't find it lucrative enough. It's probably you don't find it purposeful enough.
Okay.
For many, I would assume. Myself, I say we because when we started G8 Scientific, I was with my sister, and we both have a science background. But then we purposefully wanted to see more science coming out of Ghana, and then, we both love talking, we both love sharing our minds, so it just seemed like a natural progression, which lined up very well with what we have. But on the matter of credibility, it's interesting. If we take some of our biggest media houses now, I guess City FM being a classic example, it's interesting when you see the odd case where a news item comes out through City which seemed like it wasn't right, you check through the comments, some of the comments aren't necessarily saying, oh, but City FM is known for being credible. Some of the comments are saying stuff like, there's no way Bernard and so will allow such a thing will come out. So credibility, you immediately start thinking, is it the institution that's bearing the credibility, or is it the people that's in the institution? Because let's use Amiel is here, so I can use you and not feel bad. Let's use Amiel here. We know, okay, Amiel, relatively credible. If he moves to a media house that is not known for credibility, and Amiel moves there, immediately people think, oh, okay, if Amiel is there now, then it must mean they are not as bad. So then credibility then becomes more about the people and not so much the institution. And if the people can then get out and go start their own little platform, and then we now start calling them influencers, then aren't they still credible? Because they are the ones that would have moved and given the institution credibility. And that's how you have like the likes of Israelai and so on, who are now doing their own thing and getting that. And then for the science part of it, even if you are in the institution and you say, okay, we are running the story through layers, but who makes up those layers? Do they even know what they are looking for, right? So it still comes back to the people. And it's the people who must then bring the credibility, who must show and, just have people be able to imbue the trust in what they say.
But isn't the credibility also because of the training?
Yes, in one regard, yeah, because then people expect that you have gone through some rigorous training. And that's why scientists have a certain very protective nature about their credibility. We don't want to be misquoted, we don't want to be misconstrued and think we're wrong because one blemish on the name will cause credibility issues. So yeah, I would say it's because of the training. And it's the reason why you will trust science topics from someone with a science background. Is the reason why you'll trust someone who has some journalism training to do journalism. So yeah, the training is really essential. And that's why science journalism training or science communication training also then starts to play a role, because then it means if I am known for being a scientist and I pick any random person off the street and they spend 3 months with me and they come out and I say I've trained this person to do science reporting, that's your training.
Can anybody, do you believe him that you can pick anybody from the street and train them after 3 months and they do justice to a science story the way you would?
That's what most of the public believe when it comes to journalism. But I have studied health journalism way back at Unimac. And with practice over the period, I hear a lot of people say, if you want to be a journalist, you just have to start writing. You just have to know how to speak English. You just have to know how to interact with people, and then you can be a journalist. But journalism is a skill that you master. You learn in school and you master over time. So it's not just about seeing somebody and training the person in 3 months and then the person becoming a pro.
Okay, what if, you train the person for a year?
All right,
Will
so
that still qualify?
No, because you need to, you training the person, are you a journalist yourself? Or because you feel you have some sort of idea about journalism, you can just train the journalist. I had a brief interaction when I came in with Amayal, and I asked him, are you a trained journalist? He said, no, I have done publishing over in school.
Yeah,
but based on writing and experiences, I ventured into blogging, but he is a blogger, and he understands that he's not a journalist, but he's
now he's actually a media owner.
Yeah, but he's a blogger. Yes. So it's not just about training someone for a period of time. It's about the skill, acquiring the skill.
I was trained for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was a journalist.
Yes, but you go to journalism school. I first did diploma for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I trained to become a journalist. Mm-hmm. Yes. So it is about the work that you do, the experience over time. Yes. It all comes together to bring that experience. It brings that entitled to whatever that you do. Yeah.
She's talking about experience, right? And Amiel, you've had experience for a very long time, and yet you are not a trained journalist. Is her point valid? Because you've trained at least for the last 20 or so years since I've known you.
Yeah,
you've been at it.
In terms of practical, on the ground, and even learning on the job, because things change and you must constantly evolve. You must learn to know what is now happening. So yes, I think it's always been a difficult question to answer who a journalist is. Is it by your qualification from school or what you do? And I think the body that sort of oversees journalism, they haven't quite figured it out themselves.
Yeah.
But that is the reality, I think.
So you agree?
I think so.
The other point that I will come to also is for science communication, we all know what the end point of science is, that it's always about funding. It's a big issue, right? Any outbreak of a disease, cure for a disease, any health-related issue, the whole point always is to mobilize, to be able to mobilize, and to be able to appeal to funders, and to be able to appeal to institutions for all of them to come in and provide the right level of support. So based on this level of funding, between your journalist and your content creator, who could possibly give you reach in the shortest amount of time and on global platforms and can go as fast as possible, and then between a journalist who is probably on a 5 kVA transmitter and is limited by reach and may not necessarily go far, between the two of them in terms of amplification, and amplification specifically because of funding. I'll come to you first, Amiel. Between the two,
I think because you already put me in the middle, I always go for I always go for using a bit of the two.
yeah.
Because all of them serve different purposes. And again, I have found myself even in that space in a unique way where different organizations are working with me to put information out there, either as press release or creating specific content to that. And so for me, I think in an ideal world, both should work. But it goes without saying that those in the digital space, content creation space, sort of get more eyeballs. And sometimes too, it must be the right eyeballs. So the fact that there are 1 million people seeing the message, is it the right target? So for instance, one event I've been always sort of easy with, they partner with me and I take it easy. I do it casually for them. And I didn't quite understand why they would always come to me, but I did something for them this week, and then somebody in the space that they are going to host the event now reaches out to me and says he has a product, he wants to be a partner with that event. So even though the post perhaps would have not been seen by so many people, it's met the right person and the targeted person, and they're reaching out. So I think sometimes we shouldn't always look at the numbers. We should also look at the right people within that number.
You agree?
I agree. And the whole point is that attention is not same as accuracy. Maybe I should also say that these days, even the traditional media outlets are working with what they call digital first. So I today went to a collapsed building site, and right after interviewing whoever I needed to interview, I picked my laptop, put it on the back of someone's saloon car, and quickly edit, send it hours before the news time. Now it is posted across TV3 socials. It gets all the views and the engagement. There are instances that I have done a story, more or less like a social story, posted on my personal handle, whether on X or Facebook, and within 24 hours, I'm able to get like 300K views. So, accuracy, content, what is contained in what you're publishing. If you're talking about reach within a specific spate of time, I'll give it to the content creator. They may not necessarily have to, so to speak, exercise all of that rigorous editorial, gestures before the policies,
yep.
And instances where even marketing, marketing, more or less like interest set in so that you're unable to publish certain stuff. So I believe that, like Amayao indicated, it's all about the purpose, the people you want to reach. There are people, just an example, there are journalists who have names. When you mention their name right now, people know them. You get onto social media, they struggle to get followers. They struggle to get engagement on their posts, though they may be speaking all the sense. But let someone like so-and-so just post something and even cough. And people are commenting all over and saying all sorts of things. Now you have newsrooms that are struggling to fund journalists to get the necessary equipment for them to even go to shoot maybe a flooding incident. You need drones. You don't get funding to hire drones to use. You understand? And for instance, there are science stories that need you to investigate, to probe. You have newsrooms that are demanding that you produce the stories within a day, or at best, or at most 2 days. Okay,
And
so
some of those stories require like a month.
Of
consistently following up.
exactly, to be able to produce them. So funding is there. The funding challenges hit the newsrooms the most, and that is where I could probably agree, or no, I could disagree with the notion that journalists have failed when it comes to science communication because I'm working under someone. I'm working in the newsroom. When I do not get the necessary support to go out, to get the logistics, to go to ask the necessary questions, to test the air temperature, to test whatever it is, the humidity, the particulate matter, if I do not get the funding to do all those, I cannot produce a good story for you. Then you have it.
Content creator will just sit in his room or maybe somewhere outside and just put information out. Let's say, I want to give an example.
Please don't mention names. If you can just gesture.
Yes,
then.
so on World Health Menstrual Hygiene Day, I decided to visit some of the government schools in my area to see how the wash facilities, the state of the wash facilities, and how the girls are managing while they menstruate at school. So I took some videos. When I went to the room, I had to go through the protocol. Like I after the story was worked on, it had to be edited and all that. Then my supervisor says, nah, this story cannot go like this. And one other guy says, let's post it for the trends. Then my news editor says, we are not for the trends. We are for accuracy and credibility. If you say this is the toilet and there's another place where the girls change, both are in a bad state. Let's project where the girls change and drop the toilet because that's not where they change. One other guy said, but this is what people would like to see. My editor was like, how would you feel if you are watching this? Now, a content creator might as well just post it for the trend because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Yes. But you know, as journalists in the newsroom, there's a lot of filtering, there's a lot of editing and all that. So sometimes we tend not to get more audience as a result of these things because the filtering then, because we are because of our gatekeeping role, the filtering also becomes too much sometimes, and then we lose most of the audiences as some of the content creators easily get.
I mean, I would have gotten all the views. You're now going to post hours later. You know, they would have shared his posts. You won't get anything.
Doc, but the world has changed so much that as scientists, you still need to get your message out there. You still need to get all the interesting findings that you do out there. You still need to educate people. You still need to inform people, in addition to all these funding challenges that you have. And yet, you'd have to go through, if you worked with traditional journalists, you'd have to go through all these filters as well. How do you benefit?
I don't.
Eventually.
I don't. Ain't nobody got time for that because I don't directly benefit. Funny enough, when you look at the purpose of SciComm, it's only recently that funding is one of the reasons of SciComm. And here's what I mean. If I do any research, forget how long it takes me to do it, that's irrelevant. But if I get my findings today, really is if my purpose was funding, it's not you I need to publish it to. If my purpose is to be known within the academic community, it's not the average person that SciComm is.
You go into the journals.
Exactly, there's a medium for that. When I'm applying for funding, it's only recently that they've started to care about SciComm, but when I'm applying for funding, our profession, your metrics are your publications. Not how many articles you have in the Daily Graphic or anywhere else, it's actually paper publications. So for funding purposes, that would have been the priority. But then when you then come to the science communication, the purpose really, and I think you started alluding to this, was we want to inform people. At the end of the day, what good is the science if it doesn't benefit the lives of people, right? So you find out that, look, if you spend 2 hours in a certain area with this kind of particulate matter, it means in 20 years' time, you are very highly likely to develop lung cancer.
Yeah.
I can tell the funders this, I can tell the policymakers this, but then if we somehow don't communicate it to the average person to know that, okay, let me not take that route because that area is bad, then it hasn't benefited them. So you very easily start to see that for researchers to want to do SciComm, it's a very altruistic, like, I don't directly benefit. Nowadays, it is changing slightly, where funders are then looking for some of your communication efforts and metrics. It's really to put the science out there because it's meant for the benefits of society. Now, the reason why I then still double down on it is us who have failed, as researchers, as Christian, is because, yes, that responsibility has fallen on us.
Yeah.
I am supposed to find new knowledge, generate new knowledge, gain new understanding to the betterment of all our life. I cannot finish doing that and then step out to the lab and put on the mic and the lapel and now become a journalist, right? But it just so happened there seems to be a people who have trained and have this profession of being journalists.
And they can interview you.
And they can interview
make
me.
your life easy.
So in other words, if me who generates the knowledge, and that is my profession, that is my skill set, and you who disseminates knowledge, that is your profession, that is your skill set. And the two of us, so far, what we have produced, we all don't like what we have produced for whatever reasons. People are not giving us money, people don't find it interesting, people like, whatever reasons. The two of us do not like what we have produced. What do you call that if not we failed? Christian, what do you call that?
We've not failed. We've not failed. I disagree, because, I mean, recently I was to pitch a project, a story that I would do as part of the UK Ghana Science Communication, STI reportage. And a colleague of mine at Joy News gave me a contact to a scientist who has worked around the Agbobulushi area and understands the air there, all the nuances and everything. I needed to get some tangibles to add to my proposal so it carries weight. So I don't just go by those general information that once you search, you get the AI summaries and all of those ones. Till date, no answering of my calls, no reply of my messages. You understand? And it creates that worry. Well, you scientists may have your issues with oversimplification. You may have your issues with authentication. You may have your issues with whatever. But grant me audience. You don't grant me audience because you feel like your university will not rank you or promote you based on how much you feature on TV3. Then it becomes a problem.
But hold on.
Yeah.
If you weren't following the true rudiments of journalism, right? Mm-hmm. And you did a little bit of content creation and you put snippets out, you could pull him out to respond. Because then you would have put out information which may not necessarily be accurate, but then he would be forced to respond to it. So my question to you is, would you consider content creation in addition to your do you think journalists should, with where the world is going now, should journalists also consider content creation, where it's not necessarily going through all these different filters, but then also find the balance between creating that awareness and also being able to eventually get the detail later?
Yes, I'm concerned about credibility. It is about me. It is my brand that is out there. So, yes, in as much as I'm a content creator, I'm not going to post anything or publish anything.
Even snippets?
Yeah, sometimes I get angry that I've sent you content, posted. Just tagging it takes hours. What is that? Then at that moment, I feel like I had my own channel that I could have, hey, guy, post it. And I posted and I blasted. And it goes because I'm also thinking about competition. You understand? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't wait till hours later when Amaya had posted, and the other guys had posted theirs, especially when we all granted the same interview with Dr. Tego. Mm-hmm. And theirs are flying all over and I have to wait. Someone has to tag and the person is taking all the days. So I feel it is prudent. Just that on the flip side of it, your employer will not be happy to see you pushing another agenda. Then you must as well resign.
Yeah, so posting for reaction, publishing for reaction, sometimes we do as journalists. There are times that you would want an interview, you just put in the information that at the time of press, the person had not responded.
Yeah.
So whatever information you were asking for. But you know, sometimes I remember last week I wanted to do a story on the Ebola outbreak.
Yeah.
So I had to engage the Director for Public Health at the Ghana Health Service to give me the information that I needed, because I felt that people were concerned. We need to know what is happening and how prepared we are as a country to respond should we record a case. So he kept tossing me for like 4 days. I kept calling, sending messages constantly and all that. So I was like, can I get any other person to speak to the issue? I tried to find someone else to speak to the issue, but I realized that I did not get the information that I needed. If I were a content creator, I would still go ahead and maybe post it and get the reaction. But in this case, I'm looking at the interest of the reader, the public.
But you do teasers.
We do.
So why are you not able to do a teaser?
So I'm looking at posting a comprehensive information out there. When I post the teaser and I don't have what it takes to follow with the explanation, have I done my job? No. So in looking for the interest of the public and not just for followers or not just for competition, I would still have to wait to get the needed information. Maybe so during that time phase or that time frame of, let's say, a week, a content creator may have got some information, like snippet, like bits of information about the Ebola outbreak and just splash it. But at the end of the day, are they communicating right? Was the impact made? I had to wait for all the time. I still got my story, and then I communicated it in the right way, how it should be done.
Amiel, are content creators not making the
before
impact?
just an intervention.
No,
before
but let him respond. Are you not making the impact? She's talking about impact here.
Yes, the
But
content
you are.
creators are making the impact. We don't, maybe because it's individualistic, so people always think that is what the creator is getting. But a lot of the time, whatever they put out also is for public consumption. It goes to do the same sort of, would have had the same impact that your publication would have regardless. So yes, I think the impact, you cannot run away from it. It's what we are discussing now, you feel it.
Okay, Christine.
I just wanted to put her like that. You see, if you do comprehensive, you post like 5 minutes, they will not read though. Most people expect you're telling a science story.
In fact, for TV it's 1 minute, 60 seconds.
Yeah. You know, if it is not aphrodisiac related or something like that, they will not read. That one, people will read from the beginning to the end. But let's say you are doing an educative science story. Like, let's say UNESCO has donated e-weather stations or something of the sort to GMET. Now you want to do an educative piece on why that is important, why the northern region, for instance, critically matters or deserve to get that automated weather stations. Trust me, so far as you're not going to say that the rains are going to pour out to flood people's houses, and you are educating them about why that could help to predict rainfall and all of that, most people are not going to read. So maybe next time, just post the teaser like that. Eh?
But you're also starting to sound like journalists don't sensationalize. But journalists do. It's not only content creators that sensationalize.
Well, there are instances that we've seen some of those headlines, you know, and your boss put it on the page. On Kaseyo, but invariably she's asking you that, how can we go about this story? So now we can also post something like that. So sometimes, yes, there are journalists who are doing genuine job. There are others too that no matter verification or layers of proof, still something bad will come out.
So similarly, there are content creators who are doing a good job.
Exactly. Like I said in the beginning. I think, like he mentioned, institutions and individuals, that's how we should look at it on across board, because at the end of the day, a lot of it is driven by the person, what they are doing, rather than what they represent. And I think it's only fair that we look at it head on in that regard.
Let's go to the audience. After that, I'll come back with my final question to Doc, right? And we sort of wrap this up in terms of between the two, what would be most helpful for science communication based on the arguments put forward, the experiences haven't dealt with all as well, what that would be. But we'll take some from the audience.
Okay. Oh, okay. Great.
Please tell me, are you for or against the motion before you do your submission?
Well, I'm against it, even though it's a bit questionable to me, but I'm against it all the same. I've loved the way that the doctor or the researcher has remained in his composition with not trying to deal with content creators. Who are they? Who are these people you are talking about? Content creators. I mean, that means anybody could become. I'm from a place where we serve the internet. We do a whole lot of people. We track people, bring them to book, ensure that they do the right thing. So, and these are the people we are calling content creators. If you also are not careful with ethics, we are not careful about sanity on our airwaves, and then the business people like Madam yourself, you are trying to be promoting. They are not wrong, all right, but if you don't look at the ethical aspect of these things...
I'm neutral, by the way.
Thank
Mine
you.
is just to provoke responses and get
That
the
is
best out of both.
That is fine, thank you. But if you also do not look at it as journalists or stakeholders in this regard, as communicators in this regard, and then we are just looking at content creators, mentioning content creators, and then sometimes or some way, somehow forcing or compelling journalists do the same thing, push the right things there. They will hit the block, the police will pick them up, they will not be forgiven. You will talk about it, the laws are this, the lawyers will make all the noise. When they get to police headquarters, the police will also take over whatever they want to deal with them, because that is what the law says. So I am also of the view that while we are talking about content creation, which I have an issue with though, if that is the way people or society is thinking it is about content creation, let us look at the ethical aspect of these things. Let us look at the sanity these things will talk about. Look, you go to TikTok.
Some sort of regulation?
That is fine.
We spoke about that.
That is fine. When you go to TikTok, you surf, and then someone says, they put up unpalatable information, and then in less than 1 hour, you get 2 million followers, or even on that particular reaction, that particular thing, people are talking. Oh, they want to DM the person. Can I come to you? Can we meet for a quickie or something of that sort? These are the things people are looking for. Do we want to be promoting them? Do businesses want to be promoting them and then wipe away the journalists and then say, for the sake of content creation, so let us go for Amma. Amma says that she's now a promo person. She's now advertising, so MTN should go for that person and leave someone from Joy who has been trained and can tell the real stories. Are these the people we want to be promoting? I just want to put out some of these things. The ethics are very important. And if you lose sight of them, the police will always run after these people, and then we will be going back and forth with them.
Amir wants to respond.
I think in the beginning I talked about spectrum. This man is really, when he sees or hears content creators, it's the crux of it all. But there are so many people, so you don't lump everybody up and say content creators are like this. But that's, from what you said, that's how it came off as. Just equally as we have very unethical people on television, radio, and everywhere else, it's there. But you don't let that reflect that institution, that is what it is. So instead of, perhaps, I haven't been arrested in the 20 years or so that I've been on the internet. Some people are, but you don't put everybody together. And I think that's the thing I wanted to put in. Just, can I add something?
Yeah. We'll have one more reaction from the panel.
Okay, all right, sure. I thought you were going to, Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, just to add up, I know friends doing content creation who have studied journalism, who have gone through the mill, who have degrees, some even have masters, some do, visiting lecturer, whatever, with communication student from Legon, from all the institutions that you know. So yes, we used to have that perception about content creators as anyone who can just pick the phone and decide to do something or just post anything out there. These days there are trained journalists who, let me say, may not find a space in a media house and decide to set up their own site, and they do amazingly well.
And even people in the sciences themselves are creating content nowadays. So there are doctors who are creating specific things on dentistry, on whatever.
There used to be others like Healthline and the rest.
And, yeah.
I mean, even back from the days. Yeah.
So yeah, let's look at it in that broad.
Yeah, I think I'm for the motion, by the way. I think both parties are guilty of the same crime. I think there's sensationalism in the journalist side and the content creator side, but I think you should anchor it on what the mission is. The mission is to reach the lay audience, so you need to meet them where they are, and that comes at a risk. You might say, I don't know, one fact one day, and it gets disproven the next day. But that's then your responsibility as a content creator to make that appealing. I think journalists can take like a page out of the content creator's book and just, instead of acting like a gatekeeper or someone who's above the people, you just try to meet them where they are and actually try these content pieces, because ultimately your job is also to meet the people where they are. So you have to sort of, I guess in a business sense, be user-oriented or user-led. And it's a matter of competition. I think you have to compete with the people that are getting the attention.
Yeah. And these days, even the competition is no longer up to journalists or up to content creators, because the channels are now owned by third parties. What I mean by third parties is your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, and the rest are not owned by your typical traditional media channels. They are owned by third parties where everybody puts content. So really, it comes to my final question to Doc. Between these two, what would you like to see? Because yes, journalism to some extent, I wouldn't necessarily say failed, but it has to evolve because the world has changed. 2026, somebody would have to drive home to go and watch news on television, which is a box. In the last 3 years, I probably have sat to watch news maybe once or twice, because I can easily access BBC on my phone. I can access local news on my phone. So there's the whole convenience of it. So really, that takes, we've even evolved from, because it started from citizen journalism, sometime in the 2010s, now to content creation and all that. So for you, for science communication, yes, journalists may not necessarily tick all the boxes, and content creators don't also necessarily all tick up the boxes, because there are advantages and disadvantages and advantages and disadvantages here. Where would you like to see the balance?
So first off, I'd like to clap for guests in the audience who spoke, largely because he said the journalists and the content creators are known for sensationalism, but you see the scientists, our hands are clean, we don't. So thank you for that. But yeah, I think it comes back to answer that. It will come back to like the core mission, informing the public. And if we were to, just for the purposes of this end.
It's informing and also educating.
Informing and educating. All right, yes, informing and educating. If we were to then put in and be like, okay, so we know who the journalists are. You must have gone, you must be trained. It's a skilled profession. If you are a journalist, you know you're a journalist, and you can identify other journalists. Skilled profession. Content creators, on the other hand, if we're to identify and label them, they say data is cheap these days. So basically, everybody with a phone is a content creator.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the question becomes, where do we want to see the balance? Well, everybody is
a content creator, but there's also, I'd like for you to put it in context, but they sometimes have the reach, which is what you need sometimes, especially for education purposes.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because you can have someone's account today who is family and friends, but they did a great video, and in 2 weeks, their reach is now in the hundreds of thousands, right? So do we now say that before the hundreds of thousands, they were not a content creator, and after the hundreds, they are a content creator? Not really. So it then becomes a thing of who can put out the information. I think earlier we had mentioned that you're having cases where, like you rightly said, trained professionals are now doing that. You're having a case where journalists are stepping away from the institution and that tag and now doing that. I think as a scientist, whoever can put out the information for that end goal we're trying to achieve, bearing in mind the end goal would be different, right? So someone who's maybe an SHS student pouring out credible information among their spheres, that would be very useful if you wanted to, for example, educate on menstrual hygiene practices.
Yeah.
That works well. That would not work so well on maybe on our sites because it's a slightly different audience. So from where I sit as a scientist, I think any profession, journalist, or any creator who can help reach the target audience of choice with what we want, I'm game. Let's do this. Let's get a breakdown.
Okay. Now, should journalists evolve?
At this point, we have no option than to. We were both in the science journalism training, both in Ghana and in UK. And I think in Ghana, the training involved content creators. We had some content creators as part of the training. And when we went to UK, we had a whole section, a whole training on how to take journalism a step further, like engage audiences on TikTok, on Facebook, so embracing the digital drive.
Yeah.
So it's something that we don't have an option, we need to. If we are journalists and we feel we can tell the story better, which we always do, then taking the story, embracing the digital drive and taking the story to the audience is something that we must do now. So we don't have to be left out, we just have to. And that's what most of the media houses are doing now. You find most of the media houses doing explainers, doing, they are posting stories on their socials and all that. Yes, podcasting and all that. So it's not like the traditional media has not evolved, but these guys always find a way to be ahead of us, like one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yes, they are so quick that we are, and then we need to learn a one or two from them just so we can meet our audience as well. Yeah.
Christian, what would you have to learn from them to be able to be quick? Because speed is also part of news.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the 5 W's and H, speed was
Yeah.
one of the things
Yeah.
that we always kept emphasizing on.
Relevance, currency.
Yep. Proximity.
Proximity. So I'll talk briefly about the proximity as well, but I just side with her on what she's just said, that most of the traditional media houses are evolving and are doing better these days. I mean, there are instances, like she said, I just think both of us address specific problems in our line of communication or informing and educating the public. There are I report from Parliament, and there are instances you are going for a program with a speaker, and someone is asking for a particular blogger, a person blogger, and drew off first, so the blogger can capture the arrival of the speaker. They care more about that even more than the content you are going to put out there. So it means that they are bridging a certain gap that if we lose sight of wouldn't help us. But the proximity is another bit that I feel whether content creation or journalism we need to work on. We've had this Ebola outbreak in DRC, Uganda for some time now. How many relevant stories have we done, whether about Ghana itself? How many locally relevant science communicators are being used to tell that story even on the global stage? That is another thing. All I believe in the soapbox rant over is that, see, you need someone to give you the knowledge, someone to come out with the knowledge. You need someone to present them with the journalistic rigor that you need. Yet again, you need a creative communication that would resonate. See, people respond to science stories when it resonates with them. Why do we still have flooding in Accra? How can cocoa farmers adapt to climate change? When you ask those questions with the relevant communication tools like the content creator will do, then you will reach the people, you break it down, the issues, lay them bare as they are, then you have it. When you remove one from the equation, you weaken the whole situation. So you can't do away with either of us.
Okay. Amir, my final one to you. So should content creators now get the necessary training and rigor that journalists have? And do you think that if they got that, they'd be able to take the journalist out of the market?
Already, I don't want to see it as a competition between us and them. But I think, let me start off also by the evolution in the journalism. I think it should also be such that it's not the institutions that are just evolving, but the people and the mindset. Because you realize that most of these media houses, yes, they're on digital, but how much are their journalists that work with them? How much of personality are they exerting in the space? And I think that is the next level of evolution that we need. And these institutions, these houses should allow that and not sort of restrict them. You're working with us, you don't say this, you don't say that. We should bridge the two. So it becomes a more effective evolution for the individuals themselves and perhaps even as a reflection on the institutions.
Sorry, and even in mentioning that as well, you'll find that some of the journalists in some of these institutions do everything else apart from the news, because the editors sort of put a tight leash over them when it comes to these things as well. So you'll find that there's a journalist who's really brilliant out there, has the audience, has the following, but barely goes into anything to do with the news.
Fantastic, yeah, exactly. And in terms of what there's always room for improvement, and I think it's an individual thing. So once people allow themselves to be trained, acquire the right knowledge, whether it's in how to present facts in science or anything else, it only makes you a better person. You become more knowledgeable. It's not just about competing with the journalists, but I think I went somewhere and they were like, you're a thinker. You like to think too much before you speak. I like when people feel that I'm clever. And so whatever tool that I must use to enhance that, I personally will go through that. And I think there are similar creators out there who have that sort of mentality, and we need more of it.
If I just may, thank you for all of that. Just wanted to squeeze in some last two words. Firstly, admitting the need for evolution almost seems to suggest that the current way you exist is not suitable. So if you need to evolve, you have probably failed at the way you are, which is why you need to evolve and become something else. Sounds like
evolution is life.
With the motion alone, right? Yeah, evolution. You know why evolution is life? Because if the fish had stayed in the water, it wouldn't have survived anymore. So it came on land to evolve to survive. Yeah, exactly.
But the world is also changing so much.
And why is the world changing?
That we can't catch up.
But why is the world changing? Because the current status quo is not sufficient.
Yeah, the world
almost like it's a failure, right? So it's having to evolve to then now succeed. Yeah. So it sounds like you should be changing your vote.
I mean, you forced me to react to what you're saying because the reality
the reality is that, and just briefly, the reality, which is a point I critically want to make, is that you have media houses in this country that prioritize politics, economics.
It's not just Ghana.
Yes, but I'm making a point to react to Doc because he was looking at me. and you realize that, see, when you do a science story, you have to find a dangerous way to siphon it into the news.
Like be creative, you mean?
Like be creative.
Like the way content creators are creative. You mean like that?
Not exactly.
Okay, all right, just checking.
So it becomes very difficult. The only time that most media houses become interested in science-related stuff is when there is tidal waves somewhere in the Volta region, flooding, and we only see climate change as the exhaust fumes, you know, and we don't go beyond that.
But isn't that also because of what you define as typical news, right? Because you, again, by your training, you're taught that when dog bites man is not news, but when man bites dog is news.
Yeah.
So isn't that isn't that by virtue of your training, whereas the content creator has not been taught this from the very beginning in terms of defining what is news, because you've put yourself in a box on what you think news is.
When we become news editors, things will change. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
feel
so
like
I want to chip in
I feel like you
briefly.
should be shifting from moderator to my side.
No, I haven't. I want to chip in. Mine is just to draw out, you know, the details. Because at some point I was on their side. At some point I'm on your side.
So evolving doesn't necessarily mean we have failed. Evolving to meet the demands of the audience.
Evolving demands.
Yes. You know, there was a time I stepped in the newsroom. I had covered a press up by the health minister, and then immediately I stepped in. My editor, we saw a candle walking on 1957. Did you capture him walking to the stage? I was like, that was not what I went to do. I went to cover serious business. But editor was like, that is also part of the story. And we had to argue this, like the whole newsroom, we had to, because I have walked in to cover the story, and then you were asking me why I didn't capture while he was walking to the stage.
But there should be room for creativity.
Of course. So that's where I'm landing. I'm saying, so evolving doesn't mean that we have failed. Yes.
I think your editor will disagree with you because you hadn't evolved. He didn't like what you submitted.
Of course.
And
So
would have
that
preferred-
she was asking me to add it on.
So
Okay.
to
yes,
be better.
technically, I would have captured the news like in a more serious way. But she was asking me, why didn't you capture Akando walking to the stage? Because that was for the trend. We could create a 1 minute reel out of this. Yes. So evolving to catch up does not mean that we have failed and we have not been doing it better.
Okay. We'll put it back to the audience again. Could you please scan and vote if you think your opinion has changed? If it's not changed, that's absolutely fine. It was 8-7. So if we can have the QR code, and then we'll vote again, and then see if we're still 8-7.
Are we doing like last minute canvassing before votes?
Let's see.
All right, so this one is 2 questions. You'll answer this, and then you'll slide to the next one, and you'll answer a second question about whether you changed your mind. So you'll see the front page. You just, at the bottom, you see one of 3. So you press the arrow at the bottom to go to the next slide, yes. And then you choose agree, disagree. Then you pick the arrow at the bottom again. And then you choose, did you change your mind, yes or no? So then we can see both of those. Yes. But while you're voting, I did want to invite the final round of audience questions or comments. And then we will kind of close out as you vote. So,
good evening, everyone. I'm Abna Sawajemfi, and I'm enjoying the conversation that we are having today. I am against the motion. I don't think journalists have failed. I think just as you're talking about the need to evolve, I think journalists now have to be creators. Journalists now have to embrace content creation, as Madam Gifty was talking about the how. We need to change how we do our things so we can appeal to the public. Because now the issue is about competition for public attention, which most of the creators have. Because if we have to go through all the processes and we have a creator who has already posted, the person is on the timeline, people are listening to him or her.
But why do they need to change if the content creator already exists?
The journalist has more of credibility, more of accuracy. So the journalist has gone through the training and knows his stuff. So the information he's putting out there, he knows I'm putting the right information because I've gone through the various processes. So journalists have to embrace more of content creation so they can compete and maybe be on top of the timeline. And with Doc, I would say researchers are failing us a bit in the sense that they do.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the sense that they do wonderful research and it stays in the journal. They don't collaborate with communicators. They don't collaborate with journalists. So they do wonderful research. They are solving the problem, but it's in the journal. It's not reaching to the people. So if there should be more collaboration between researchers, journalists, there's going to be a lot of things that we can do in terms of dissemination information for the people. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I have a question for Tom.
Yep.
I'm curious, what does success look like for you? And what does it's eerie. I just saw myself on the screen. Yeah. So, what does success look like in terms of science communication? And why do you think that academics have failed, researchers have failed so far?
All right, solid.
And then finally, given what you know a researcher's workload is, do you think that okay, let me come at this a different way. The last one is just a comment.
Yeah.
I think that there should be a bit more intentionality on setting up paths of communicating science, whether or not there's engagement. I think that to just wholesale say that people won't be interested in listening to the science is a bit problematic because you don't know what interests people have. And if we don't make the effort to put the content out there, we're not being intentional about finding or making relationships with researchers and researchers making relationships with content creators or journalists, then there's no real effort that's made in putting high quality science out there, because I think there's a lot of amazing science that's going on, scientific research that's going on in this country, and we should find ways of just putting the information out there and see what happens, rather than creating this impression that there's a short attention span and so on and so forth. So that's the last.
Okay, so I'll answer your question. I'll try and build up to it. And in building up to it, there's a thinking tool. It's weird to say there's a tool to help you think, right? Thinking tool, I believe Occam's razor. The idea that if you're trying to figure something out, probably the simplest one is where you should start from. And why do I say that? Well, as a researcher, when I discover things, I'm the one holding that knowledge, okay? And one of the purpose or one of the things that as a scientist you are supposed to do is to share that knowledge. So then that means if I know something and you don't know it, whose fault is it? It's mine, primarily. Yeah. Once I accept that, okay, then that means I bear some responsibility for you not knowing. In accepting that failure, I can now see how to make sure you now know it, okay? So there were three parties in play here, right? Then we come to the journalists, right? Whose primary skill set is making sure people know what's happening. Like you rightly said, if you take a researcher's workload, you cannot expect me to spend time in the lab researching and then also make it my primary job to disseminate, right? I will not be able to do both effectively. So if there's a profession whose primary objective is to share information, and I have information that needs to be shared, and I am failing at doing it. So they had a whole breed of journalists who said, all right, let's be science journalists. We focus on science. We focus on sharing science information. And now you still don't know. So who is now also to blame? Journalists, okay? So then if we, and I'll end on what success then looks like, right? So then if you now have this new breed of people who say, we can share the information, right? Maybe we don't do it right all the time. And maybe we sensationalize, but we are really good at sharing information. Then it seems like, okay, I have the information. Come, let's see if you can also help share it. And then we can figure out the errors and so on. So what will success look like? I think this idea of scientific literacy. And you gave the perfect example, right? The example was, how can someone believe that you can have a lotion which you rub on your bum and it can give you a big behind? With just a little bit of science, it's not my area of specialty, but with just a little bit of science, I know that, okay, you could potentially achieve that, but it may be hazardous in the long run and it won't be long lasting, right? That is what, if a general population can take anything, here's the information, have a background of scientific literacy to be able to weigh it out, to know what decision is in their best interest. I think that's what success will look like for me, where there's a scientifically literate population that can take any piece of information and basically dissect it to their own benefits. Yeah.
Whether it's accurate or it's not accurate.
Whether it's accurate or not accurate, yes.
Okay, we have a last comment here, then we'll bring it. Oh, MC.
Hi, I think interesting discussion. A researcher, I'm Dr. Ezekiel. My thing is epistemic critical, in that, in as much as we're trying to get a science out there to meet people, we still need it to go through the proper channels, and then the people communicating it should have some form of liability as well. So traditional media, for instance, has institutional liability. If they put something out that's wrong, people can sue them, so on and so forth. For a typical content creator, they can just revert to, it's my opinion, right? And that's it. And then also these people, they run campaigns, so you can easily sponsor them, and then they can sway public opinion on stuff. And then we live in modern times where we make decisions, policies, regulations based on scientific discoveries. So even some scientific papers and stuff, they get pulled out by institutions because it's too controversial now. And then they're going to, the policymakers will use it to take away people's rights, right? So it's very important that in as much as we want to push it out there and reach a lot of people, the people doing it, they need a credibility. We can't just have anyone doing it because they have followers, right? Because they can distort the information. Like scientific discoveries are very complicated. You can have something right now today, someone will discover something else and we push it forward, we draw a bigger boundary around it, the whole notion can change next. And then if you have someone who can easily be paid to run campaigns, they can just nitpick whatever information and then push a whole public agenda, and then the policymakers just jump on it, and then that's a whole disaster on its own, right? So I'm happy that we have like actual scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and what's not coming out, and then they have a big platform where they talk about science, but not everyone will be able to do that. And then since people are not able to do that, I don't think we should just give it out to just mere content creators, because like not enough of them have the scientific background, and science is very sensitive to just leave it up to anyone to talk about it.
Allow me to just throw in a question.
Yeah.
What you just described, 100% correct. That credibility, so important. But what you just described is not unique to content creators. People buying them out, them sharing false news. It's also a journalism problem. You have institutions also have the same
True,
problem.
but with institutions,
right?
there's more layers of safeguard as compared to someone with just a camera in their room.
I think someone also argued earlier, there's also more money to pay lawyers.
More money to pay lawyers?
Yeah, to pay lawyers. Like, they can ignore safeguards because there's more money to pay lawyers.
True.
Right? So 100% I agree. But that problem is a journalism problem. It's also a content creator problem.
But one is the lesser evil. Because it's way easier for the content creator to just go and say something and go like, it's my opinion, no repercussions. But for a whole institution, you can get blackballed by the public. And that's an actual risk.
In our part of the world, yes, because at the moment, a lot of content creation is not being regulated. In UK and other places, even to stand as a content creator on a particular topic, certified by institutions. So in Ghana here is absolutely not regulated, and I don't think it's going to be regulated in.
Am I allowed to? Okay. I just want to bring some practicality to the conversation. If, let's say, I have this amazing discovery about how I can read people's mind, I want to do the right thing and communicate it to the general audience. And then I reach out to Ghana News Agency. What's the response going to be? First of all, I get a response. And some websites would have an editor email that you may or most of the time won't get a response to. Some journalists, you may get a contact, you reach out to them, and they don't think it's newsworthy. Some you may never hear back. And I think Christian had made a submission earlier on about how you want information from the scientists and you're not getting it. But it's the same for scientists. You want to read journalists to share news, and they're not interested, including bloggers as well. So if we're saying, I think one thing that both sides have agreed on is that we owe it to the general public to disseminate the information. But seems like both sides, journalists can't reach the scientists, scientists can't reach the journalists. So what's the solution? And this is where I say come to GA Scientific.
But I think gradually we are getting there. I know universities or institutions like Imperial, for instance, that has a team of communicators. They have the science background, and they are able to simplify innovations, discoveries, so much so that you read. When we went there, this lab on the chip, innovations, the gene editing, the mosquito gene editing and stuff, and they have published good, articles. Layman's English, you read, you understand, and you're able to even pick and copy some of them and add to your story, you see? And it makes it very interesting. And I know GH Scientific does very well. Every week, they're able to put together a collage of all the science stories, and you're able to get it at speed. So we are getting there. One thing I believe the researchers don't do well is that most of them believe that, see, I'm not going to be promoted based on my public influence. I'm not going to be promoted based on how many articles I have published on 3news.com. I'll be promoted based on citations, grant, and the rest. I may not know all of them. So they'll focus more on those things that their institutions would easily recognize them for. And then anything public or communication related becomes secondary. That's what I know. I mean, I believe most of the scientists do.
Here's why I say no to that. If that was true, and there is an element of truth to it, 100%, but if that really stood true, then that means everyone who is at the rank of professor should always respond to you, because they no longer need the promotion. They've reached the apex. So if that's really true, then immediately you reach out to every professor, they should respond. But that's not the case, which means then it can't be true. It has to be something else, right? I don't know what that something else is. I can speak for myself.
I think that scientists fear journalists most of the time, because most of them feel they'll be miscommunicated.
Is there evidence for that?
There
is there
have
evidence
been.
you've miscommunicated?
There have been. There have been over the period.
Saying-
Okay. But I think,
But okay, all right.
but I think
So-
that it's always best to identify the right people to engage.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to get the people who are interested in what you're talking about. If the person doesn't appreciate it, I may be a journalist, but I may be on the political or sports beat. If you engage me with science stories, I wouldn't treat it with that relevance or that agency.
Recommend someone
yes.
else then, ideally.
Yes, it is better to. You have met a few health journalists and science reporters, like in your line of work. I think it's better to keep that line, build that connection with them, and engage them when you have groundbreaking stories.
I remember recently
Alright.
Doc engaged me, just briefly, Doc engaged me recently on an anniversary or a program like that
Yeah,
that I knew would come with some rich science content. Even if not from the theme of the conference, you could always engage scientists around. You get easy access. I wasn't available. I share with those who can assign someone to be there. And it never happens because then it is not a priority. You see, so in that instance, if you have a content creator who is level-headed and can help you push it out there, you go for that person,
Yeah.
and you're good.
Yeah, but sometimes also, I think what you can also find helpful sometimes is if you have documents to actually back it up, right? Because I've worked as an editor, and sometimes when people come to you to say, we've had this discovery or we've had that, sometimes my first line of defense is, for instance, you would have people who come and sell all sorts of drugs. My first line would be, do you have FDA approval? You know, like your typical tick boxes as well. So sometimes when you're approaching editors and journalists for these things, if you've got verified information, it's always a lot more helpful than for the journalist to go seek the verification for you.
I have to say, one of the things I particularly liked about the STI group is that at least you have in there a space of journalists.
STI
who-
standing for.
Sorry.
Make sure.
I know, right?
Yeah,
STI
it
group.
shouldn't have been me doing this. All right, so the Science, Technology, and Innovation, so the one that the Imperial runs, that training. I think it's in the third cohort. Third cohort? One second. Okay, at least you have the space of journalists who have acknowledged that I can be better if I want to report science news. And then it's great because the next step I see to that will be if you could then also get an equal space of scientists who say, I want a journalist who I can trust to do a story for me. Then it removes that first hurdle that you mentioned about how hard it was to find
I thought
the
you were
scientists
for
you're looking
content
for.
creators.
Oh no, I'm for anybody who puts my science out there. Like right now, you journalists, you are being some way be about it. So if the content creators want to do it, let's go and put it. So just a space where the information holders and the information disseminators, thank you very much, can be in that space where I'm not having to cajole you to do my story. You are not having to chase me for 4 days to get a response. There will be a beautiful start. And then this where my sister in the room will be like, yes, be scientific, be that space. But in essence, I think that will be what will solve the problem. But for that to begin, I must acknowledge I'm failing as it is now. And you must acknowledge you are failing as it is now, so that we can all look for what is the best step forward. Yeah.
Thank you. What was the voting?
Oh, you'll better vote again after that next speech.
Can you show the poll? Thank you, first of all. Thank you all. Okay, yes. No, the first one. So no one changed their mind. Oh. And we still have most people disagree.
Yeah, most people disagree.
And no one changed their mind. Darn. Tom, you tried.
I know, I did. I 100%. But you know, curiously, just as a joke, there's this meme you find online where someone points that it has scientifically been proven that just presenting people with more data does not change their mind. And then someone comes and comments under it, I don't believe you. And it's like, well, yeah, that's exactly.
Well, can we give our panel and our moderator a round of applause? Some energy for the people. I know that you're eating, so. I really want to thank you, Gifty, for your moderation. First of all, for writing what you did on LinkedIn and then presenting us with this opportunity. I think for me, I heard a number of things. One of them is that credibility is a function of the people and personalities. So we might be moving into an era where it's not about the house, but about the person. That's on the journalist side either way. And what does that mean? We talked about the layers in journalism. Are they helpful or hurtful in terms of the time, so on and so forth? We talked about, are they the right eyeballs? I think, you're the one who said that. Like, you have a lot of audience, but are they the right people? Should we leverage reactions to draw in the scientific community, which I thought was really interesting. Let's make the scientists angry. And maybe then, they'll engage. But a number of wonderful, wonderful comments were made, and we're so grateful. We have a small token of appreciation for you before we take a group photo to say thank you for giving us generously your time. These journalists did not say no. We didn't have to bang on their doors. So I guess we have that benefit. And of course, thank you, Dr. Tego and Amayao as well for your participation. And again, 50. So this was live streamed and can be watched later on if you want to share with anyone. And if in the survey, we did add our WhatsApp and our LinkedIn, so you can follow Imperial to see what else we'll be doing. This week, we also have an event called Knowledge on the Rocks, where we'll be doing a lecture in a bar. So we're really trying to, up the ante and do sexy things with science, for those of you who said we weren't being creative before. But again, thank you all, and have a great day.
such a rush, my baby, slow down, come find your love. I'm hoping you see me, come serve it up. Loving when you stir it up, that body belong on TV. Oh, this feeling I can't hide. You're feeling up my mind, and I just don't know why.
Five lives, five lives, five lives.